The day Melissa found out her ex-husband was bringing his girlfriend to her bakery, she almost laughed. Almost. She was elbow-deep in a batch of brioche dough when her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from her friend Donna. "Heads up. Just saw Kevin's car 2 blocks away. The blonde is with him." Melissa set down the dough. She wiped her hands on her apron, the worn linen one with the small embroidered crown near the pocket that her daughter had given her 3 Christmases ago. She looked around the kitchen, flour on every surface, the smell of brown butter and cardamom in the air, the soft knock of the proofing dough against the inside of the bowl. Her bakery, her kitchen, her life. She tied the apron strings tighter and went back to work. 6 years ago, Kevin Marsh had stood in the doorway of their old apartment and told her that she was playing house. That's what he called it, playing house. She had quit her job as a paralegal to open a small bakery in a strip mall off Route 9 in Millbrook, New Jersey. And he had watched her do it with the expression of a man watching someone throw money into a river. "You don't have a business degree," he'd said. "You don't have investors. You have a mixer and a dream, Melissa." He said the word dream the way some people say the word reckless. She had opened anyway. The first year was brutal. She worked 17-hour days. She burned batches. She underpriced everything because she was terrified of losing customers she hadn't even earned yet. She ate cereal for dinner most nights and kept a sleeping bag in the back office for when the 4 a.m. start times made going home pointless. Kevin came by exactly once in that first year. He stood at the counter, looked around at the mismatched chairs and the chalkboard menu, and said, "It's cute." He meant it as a kindness. It landed like a verdict. They signed the divorce papers 8 months later. He got the apartment in the city. She got the bakery and a studio above a dry cleaner on Elm Street that smelled like perchloroethylene every time it rained. Donna told her, gently, about the girlfriend 6 weeks after the ink dried. Her name was Farah, 29 years old. Marketing director at Kevin's firm. Hair the color of winter wheat, nails always done. The kind of woman who photographed well from every angle. Melissa had nodded, thanked Donna for telling her, and gone home and made 4 dozen scones she didn't need. Baking was how she processed things. It always had been. By the time Kevin's silver Audi pulled into the small lot behind the bakery, Melissa was pulling a tray of brown butter finance shears from the oven. She knew he was there before she saw him. She could hear Farah's voice through the back window, bright, carrying, slightly too loud for a Tuesday morning. "This is so quaint," Farah was saying. "I love a little local place." Melissa set the tray on the cooling rack without a sound. She heard Kevin's voice, lower. "It's fine, she's trying." There it was again, that word. Trying. Melissa wiped down the counter. She straightened the small framed quote she kept above the prep station. A line she'd written herself and had printed at the local copy shop on a Tuesday afternoon when she was feeling particularly clear-headed. "The work is the answer." She checked herself in the reflection of the oven door. Hair pulled back. A small smear of powdered sugar near her left ear. She dusted it off. Then she pushed through the swinging door into the front of the house. The Millbrook Bakehouse looked nothing like it had 6 years ago. She had expanded into the unit next door 18 months after opening. The mismatched chairs were gone, replaced by white oak tables with hairpin legs, soft leather stools at the counter, pendant lighting that her contractor friend Beau had helped her hang on a Saturday in November when they were both slightly underdressed for the cold. The menu was on a reclaimed wood board behind the register. The display case ran the full length of the front wall, lit from below, and inside it were things that had taken her years to learn to make well. Queen-amen, tart tatin and individual raymekins, a seasonal miso caramel tart that a food writer from New Jersey Monthly had called one of the most quietly sophisticated things I have eaten in this state. She'd had the article framed. It was on the wall by the door, next to a photo of her and Donna on opening day, and a small chalkboard that read today's specials in Melissa's own handwriting. Kevin walked in first. He looked the same. A little grayer at the temples, the cashmere coat she recognized. He scanned the room the way he always did, assessing, categorizing. And she watched his face shift through 2 or 3 expressions she could read after 12 years of marriage. Surprise, then recalibration, then the careful neutral that he put on when he didn't want anyone to see that he was surprised. Farah walked in behind him and immediately took out her phone. "Oh," Farah said, turning slowly, photographing the pendant lights, the display case, the chalkboard. "Oh, this is actually really good, Kevin. This is really good." Kevin said nothing. He was still looking around. Melissa came around the counter with a small smile. "Kevin," she said. "Hi." He turned. and there was a half-second, just a half-second, where something moved across his face that she hadn't seen in a long time. Not guilt exactly. Something more complicated than that. Something closer to recognition. Melissa. He cleared his throat. Hi. We were in the area. Farah wanted to stop in. Of course, she said. Welcome. I'm Melissa. She extended her hand to Farah. Farah shook it warmly, still half looking at her phone. I saw your Instagram. The Cooing a Man looked incredible. It's a weekend-only thing, but I have some from Saturday if you want to try a piece. We froze a few for staff. She paused. I can warm one up. Farah looked at Kevin like she'd just been offered a small miracle. Kevin nodded. He was still doing the thing with his eyes, moving around the room without moving his head. Taking inventory. Melissa went back behind the counter and put the Cooing a Man in the oven. She pulled 2 menus from the stack below the register. Walked them back to the table by the window. The best table. The one with the view of the little courtyard garden she'd put in 2 summers ago, with the bay laurel and the terracotta pot and the string light's bow, had helped her hang from a copper pipe he'd welded to the fence, and set them down without flourish. Take your time, she said. She did not hover. That was a thing she'd learned about herself in the years since the divorce. She didn't need to watch people see it. The seeing was enough. It happened whether she watched or not. She went back to the kitchen, finished the financier tray, started the afternoon prep, listened to the low murmur of Kevin and Farah's conversation through the pass-through window. Heard Farah say, "The garden is so sweet, babe." Heard Kevin say, Heard a long pause. Her sous chef, a 22-year-old from Montclair named Tobias who was frighteningly talented and knew it, appeared at her elbow. "Table 2?" he said. "My ex-husband," she said, "and his girlfriend." Tobias looked at her with the particular expression of a young person who has decided to remain very still in the presence of something interesting. "And," he said. "And nothing," she said. "Can you plate 2 of the brown butter financiers? And add a miso caramel tart from the new batch." Tobias plated them beautifully, because he plated everything beautifully, and Melissa carried them out herself. She set them on the table without comment. Farah made a small noise of genuine delight. Kevin looked at the plates, then at the display case, then at the article framed on the wall. He stood up. She watched him walk to the frame, watched him read it. The New Jersey Monthly piece, 2 years old now. She knew it by heart. Melissa Marsh has done something quietly extraordinary in Millbrook. What started as a modest strip mall operation has evolved into one of the more serious pastry destinations in the state. Serious in ambition, but never precious, never cold. The miso caramel tart alone is worth the drive. Kevin stood there for a long moment. Long enough that Farah looked up from her phone. Long enough that 2 women at the table nearest the door glanced over. Then he came back and sat down. He picked up his fork. He took a bite of the financier. He didn't say anything for almost a full minute. Then, "This is really good, Melissa." She smiled. Not the smile she'd been wearing for customers all morning. A different one, smaller, less performed. "Thank you," she said. "Let me know if you need anything." And she went back to her kitchen. Here is what Kevin Marsh did not know when he walked into the Millbrook Bakehouse that Tuesday morning in October. He did not know that Melissa had received, 4 weeks prior, a letter from a group of investors based in Philadelphia who had eaten at the bakehouse twice and wanted to talk about expansion, not a franchise. They were clear on that because she'd been clear on that from the first email. A second location. Her concept, her standards, her team. A 40% stake in exchange for the capital to do it right. She had a meeting with them the following Monday. He did not know that she had been named 3 months earlier to the advisory board of a small culinary institute in Newark that was trying to create a professional pastry program for first-generation college students. She went once a month. She taught a Saturday workshop every other week. 2 of her former workshop students now worked in restaurant kitchens in New York City. He did not know that Tobias, her sous chef, had turned down a job at a 3 Michelin-star restaurant in Manhattan to stay at the Millbrook Bakehouse for another year. Not because of the money. The money was better in Manhattan. Because of what they were building. Because of how it felt to come to work somewhere that knew what it was. He did not know that the studio apartment above the dry cleaner had been replaced 2 years ago by a house. A real one. 3 bedrooms, a proper yard, a kitchen with professional-grade appliances, and room to actually move. She'd bought it with cash. Or near enough to cash. A small mortgage, manageable. The kind you paid down without noticing, because the business was doing what the business was supposed to do. He did not know any of this because he had stopped paying attention. That was the thing about Kevin. He had never been unkind. Exactly. He hadn't been cruel in any obvious way. He just stopped paying attention at a certain point, stopped looking, decided he already understood what he was seeing. A woman who was trying, who might always be trying, and closed the file. People do that. They close the file. They think they know the shape of a person, and they stop looking for new information. The problem, Kevin's problem, specifically, and the specific variety of it that would stay with him for a long time after that Tuesday morning, was that the file had kept growing without him. Farah finished both financiers and most of the miso caramel tart. She photographed all of it. She was already typing a caption when Kevin paid the bill. He paid in cash, which surprised Melissa, because Kevin had always been a card man. And she heard Farah saying, as they pulled on their coats, "I'm posting this. People need to know about this place." Kevin buttoned his coat. He looked at Melissa one more time. There was something in his face she hadn't been looking for and didn't quite know what to do with. Not regret in the dramatic sense. Something quieter. The expression of a person doing a very private kind of arithmetic. "You've built something real here," he said. She didn't perform modesty. She didn't deflect. She had spent enough of her life deflecting. "I know," she said. He nodded once. Farah pulled open the door, and the October air came in, bright and cool, and then they were gone. Melissa stood at the counter for a moment. Just a moment. Tobias appeared in the pass-through. "Well," he said. "He paid cash," she said. "Left 20%. Standard," Tobias said, unimpressed. "His girlfriend's posting us." Tobias perked up slightly. "How many followers?" "Don't know. Didn't ask." Tobias disappeared back into the kitchen. Melissa heard the clatter of a sheet pan, the hiss of the oven vent, the particular rhythm of her kitchen in full afternoon stride. She looked at the courtyard through the window. The bay laurel, the string lights, which weren't on yet because it was still afternoon, but which she'd started turning on earlier, now that the days were getting short. She thought about the Monday meeting, about the second location, about the students in Newark who were right now learning to make croissants for the first time in a teaching kitchen that smelled like butter and effort and possibility. She thought about the studio apartment above the dry cleaner, the perchloroethylene, the sleeping bag in the back office. She thought about Kevin saying she's trying in the parking lot and not knowing she could hear him. She thought about what it had taken to get from that to this. Not the big moments, the article, the investors, the board position. Those were easy to point to. She meant the other kind. The 4 a.m. starts, the batch of croissants she'd thrown out entirely on a Thursday in February, because they weren't right. And the knowledge that throwing them out was the correct decision, and doing it anyway even though it meant losing the morning's product and the morning's revenue. The Sunday she'd sat in the empty bakehouse at 9 o'clock at night, alone, and asked herself if she was sure, and answered yes and meant it. The decision, made quietly and repeatedly and without audience, to keep going. 6 days later, Farah's post went up. 14,000 followers. The caption read, "Hidden Gem Alert. Stumbled into this place in Millbrook, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it's one of the best things I've eaten all year. The miso caramel tart," someone explained. She'd tagged the bakehouse. She'd tagged the location. She'd used 3 or 4 hashtags that Melissa didn't fully understand, but Tobias, who understood all of them, declared genuinely useful. By noon, the reservation line was full for the weekend. By 3 o'clock, they had a wait list. Donna texted, "Did Kevin's girlfriend just make you go viral?" Melissa texted back, "Apparently." A pause. Then Donna again, "How do you feel about that?" Melissa thought about it for a moment. Genuinely thought about it, standing in her kitchen, flour on her hands, the financier batter resting in the bowl. She typed, "Good. The work is the work." She put her phone down and went back to the dough. The Monday meeting with the Philadelphia investors went well. Better than well. She walked in with her numbers. 3 years of clean books, margin she was proud of, projections she could defend, and walked out 2 hours later with a term sheet she was going to have her lawyer review by Thursday. A second location. Montclair, probably. Maybe Jersey City. Her concept, her standards, her team. She drove back to Millbrook in the October afternoon and pulled into the small lot behind the bakehouse and sat in her car for a minute before going in. The trees on Route 9 were going amber and rust. The afternoon light was that particular October gold that makes ordinary things look slightly more than ordinary. She thought about the moment 6 years ago when Kevin had stood in the doorway and said, "You have a mixer and a dream, Melissa." And she had not been able to find the words for what she already knew. That the dream wasn't the point. The work was the point. The showing up was the point. The batch you throw out on a Thursday in February. Because it isn't right. That was the point. The dream was just the direction. Everything else was just work. Good, hard, honest work. She got out of the car. She tied her apron. She went inside. The kitchen smelled like brown butter and cardamom, and the particular warmth of a place that knows what it is. Tobias was at the prep station, moving with the focused economy of someone who had long ago stopped needing to think about the basics. The afternoon light came through the high windows and caught the stainless steel surfaces and the flour in the air. "How'd it go?" Tobias said without looking up. "Good," she said. She pulled her hair back. She washed her hands. "How good?" She looked at her kitchen. Her kitchen. The proofing drawers. The stand mixers lined up by the wall. The small frame print above the prep station. "The work is the answer." "Term sheet good," she said. Tobias set down his bench scraper. He looked at her for a moment, with the expression of a 22-year-old who has just understood that something real is happening, that he is part of something real, and that this is not nothing. Then he picked up his bench scraper and went back to work, and Melissa Marsh, who had started with a mixer and a dream in a strip mall off Route 9, who had eaten cereal for dinner and slept in her office and thrown out entire batches of croissants on Thursday mornings in February, who had been told she was trying by a man who had already decided he knew the shape of her, went to work too. The oven was warm. The dough was ready. There were people coming in the morning who had never tasted what she could make. She had a lot of work to do.